Hey guys, welcome back to Gather Online. It's Tuesday, and not just any Tuesday, it's Testimony Tuesday. I'm gonna be honest, y'all, we had to break out the B team for today's video. So the guy we got going is a little sensitive, okay? So take it easy on him, all right? So without any further ado, check it out. Well, my name's Josh. I am the youth minister here at Irving Church, and I'm going to be giving my testimony today for Testimony Tuesday. We'll just start from the beginning. I grew up in church. My parents raised me in church, a good church, a place that preached the gospel and taught the Bible, all that good stuff. And about the time I got into middle school was when I decided that I was a little too cool for Jesus. I didn't really care about God. I didn't really want to follow God or anything like that. I liked girls a lot, and that took up a lot of my attention, and being cool helped you in that department. And so I did my best to be cool, and so I abandoned all of my not so cool Christian friends and all that. And my parents would still try to force me to go to church. You know, I would go on Sundays and couldn't really get out of that. But on Wednesdays, they would have the middle school ministry, and my parents would try to take me there. And they would take me there, and I would show up, and I would be there for about 1 minute, and then I would call my parents, and I'd be like, hey, don't know what's going on. They canceled church. There's no church tonight. And I don't know why they believe me, because I did that like every time. They're like, man, they canceled church like every single week. And so youth kids, my kids, don't try that. That wasn't good, and I'll know what you're up to. But yeah, so that was just kind of where I was. Like, I didn't really care about God, didn't want anything to do with Him. Just had a lot of other priorities, and so all that to say, I didn't care about God, but I had developed. I was probably 12 years old when I had really started getting into pornography, and it kind of developed. You know, it was just pictures of loosely clothed women and stuff like that whenever I was younger. But then somebody once told me, I'll never forget, sin always takes you further, faster, and longer than you ever wanted to go. And that was the case with me. It started with that, but then by the time I was probably like 14, I was watching hardcore pornography every day, trying to get out of it. And that was the funny thing, is I didn't really care about God, but I knew that I hated what I was doing, and I felt dirty, and I was still convicted by it, and just covered in guilt. And like I said, didn't really care about God that much, but still, every time I would do it, I would pray. I hated it so much, I would pray and be like, God, take this away from me. If you're there, take it away from me. I don't want to do this. And so that's where I was at. But every time I would pray that, I would just always go back to it the next day. Or if I tried really hard, I'd grit my teeth and white knuckle it until I'd make it 2 or 3 days. But then after that, I would just fall right back into it. It was inevitable. And that's where I was for a long time until I was 15. My dad was picking me up from tennis practice one day, and I got in the car, and he didn't go anywhere. He just sat there, me and him both in the car, and he said, I found something on the computer. You know what I'm talking about? And I said, nope. And he said, really? Because this will be a really awkward conversation to have with your 11-year-old brother. I confessed to it. I knew that the jig was up, and so I just told him, yeah, that was me. And that was the longest, most awkward car ride home ever. And so I went into my room, and I closed the door, and I just fell on my knees in shame at my bed, and I just started weeping, started crying. Anybody who knows me knows that I don't cry very much. That's an unusual thing for me. And so it's usually something pretty major. But today I cried. I sat on my bed and I just wept. And I just prayed the same prayer that I had prayed so many times before. And that was, God, if you're there, take this away from me. I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I can't stop. Like, I need your help. And, I got up and went on with my day after that. And the next day, I didn't feel any urge to go look at pornography for the first time in years. And I was like, okay, well, maybe, I'm just still kind of, the shame is so fresh and real that I'm still wouldn't even consider it. But one day went by, 2 days went by, 3 days went by, a week went by, and still not even the thought entered my head of going to do this. And like I said beforehand, I would if I tried to quit, it would last a day, 2, 3 days if I'm trying really, really hard. But this time, just the temptation wasn't even there. A whole year went by without a single temptation. God had completely taken away even the urge to do this sin. It was a miracle, and I knew it. And what happened is that before, didn't want anything to do with God, too cool for God, couldn't get me in church. That's what it took for me to realize God is real, and He's powerful, and He must really love me to answer, the cry of my heart like that. And so things took just a total 180 for me. And at that point, I was in church every time the doors were open. And I started changing my friend group. I went back to my old Christian friends, stopped trying to be cool. Even when I was trying to be cool, it didn't really work out that well. And so I was like, man, this is like a losing battle. I'm just going to go back to my Christian friends. But yeah, so I was in church every time the doors were open. I started reading my Bible. I started telling people about Jesus at my school, and I just became a Christian. That's what happened. I gave my life to Christ whenever I was like 5, and I got baptized when I was 7, and I don't really know what my whole views on salvation are right there, but when I was 15 and all this happened and God showed Himself to be real, that's when I really started following Jesus. And then I had a little bit of a crisis, because after a year of being just freed from this sin, I'm just following Jesus and everything's great, there was a day where I don't remember what I was doing. I was just sitting there doing whatever, and all of a sudden the thought crept into my head, why don't you go look at porn? And I was like, no. What is this? And it was very, very strong. The temptation was really, really real again. And I remember going to my youth pastor. I was in tears talking to him, because I was like, why is this happening again? Like, God took this away from me. Like, I haven't done it, but the temptation is so strong. And I really don't remember what he told me that day. I do remember what he told me that day. He said, you should be a youth pastor one day. And I was like, how are you getting that from this? But that didn't help very much, because just a couple days later, I ended up looking at porn again for the first time in about a year since the Lord had freed me. And that was a real issue for me. Like, I was having a little bit of a theological crisis, because I was like, God, I thought you took this away from me. Why would you give it back to me? And after that, I got stuck back into pornography for about 5 or 6 more years of that. It was never as intense as it was before the Lord freed me, but it was still a weekly, every other week thing where, no matter how much I tried, I couldn't get out of it again. The Lord had taken it away the first time, and that's, I realized that that's what I needed to realize that God was real and that He loved me, and that's what really got me following Jesus, but I was still stuck in this sin. And the Lord took it away from me the first time, I believe, just to show me His miraculous power, and that He loved me and that He was real. And but the second time, I couldn't realize it at the time why God would have taken this away from me and allowed it to come back into my life. But I think I figured it out now, is that He allowed it to come back into my life because it doesn't work like that for everybody. Not everybody gets the miraculous deliverance from their sins like that whenever they first start following Jesus. And for all of us, it's a fight, and it's something that God invites us into to get freed of. We have to work with Him. That's when He taught me about walking in the Spirit and depending upon Him. The Lord showed me that I didn't just need Him to get saved. I needed Him just to walk with Him every single day. This Christian life isn't something that God is up there asking me to do for Him. That's why he gave us his Holy Spirit. It's something that he's up there asking us to do for him, but he's also down here living inside of us, wanting to do it with us. And that was really what liberated me, is learning that this isn't something that I'm doing on my own. And it became something that it's, Jesus, I need you today. Jesus, I have to cling to you today or else I'm not going to make it. Especially trying to get out of an addiction. It's very clear in those times. And so the Lord taught me how to walk in step with him, how to be dependent on him every single day. And a lot of times it just looked like living basically on my knees. And I'm so thankful to say that today, living free from pornography for a few years now. And that was something that the Lord had to teach me how to do, and that was something that the Lord had to, that I needed his help to do with him. Since I became a Christian, since Jesus, rescued me so many years ago when I was 15, he's been a lot of things to me. He's been a provider and a friend and a deliverer, to be sure. But one of the biggest things he's been a warrior in my life, and he has taught me how to fight, and he's come and fought for me. And the result has been that he has freed me from my sins. I can sit here and joyfully say that I don't have to live in the things that bound me before. And I don't know who else is going to listen to this testimony, but I would like to say to anybody who's going to be listening to this testimony that Jesus can do the same for you. There is no sin that is too great. There are no chains that are too strong that he can't break in your life, and that you can't live completely free from with his power.